Welcome to this workshop on using the library to effectively find information for sports and exercise management. Hi, my name is Dermot and I am your college liaison librarian, and that means I'm part of the team here in the library that's here to support you while you're a student. So after this session, if you've got any questions or queries, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And as we go through this presentation, I'll show you how you can get in touch via email if you have any questions. I hope you enjoy this presentation. I hope you'll find it useful as part of your degree, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. So what are we going to cover today? After this session, you should know how to find services and support on the library website. You should know how to search OneSearch for print and electronic resources. We'll go over how you can search effectively for information and how to evaluate the information that you find. And we'll talk about where you can get training and how to use EndNote to manage your references. So where are you going to look for information while you're doing this degree? There are a number of places where you can search for information. In a few minutes we're going to show you where you can learn about how to use OneSearch to find out what we have in the library. But for a degree like this, you need to go beyond what's just in the library and look at the broader range of material for your topic. So you need to start looking in the databases, and we've highlighted some of the databases here, such as Sports Discus or ABI Inform. You might also think of using Google Scholar. If you haven't used Google Scholar, it's going to be very familiar to you because it does have the Google interface, but it focuses on more of the academic side of the literature, and it's a really handy tool that you can use to find articles that we don't subscribe to, because there's plenty of free articles there. You probably will discover journals that are important for your course, also your area of interest, and a lot of these are available online, so you can set up an alert so that you'll be notified when the new issue comes out and you'll be able to view the table of contents. Obviously, one of the tools that a lot of people use is Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is a brilliant resource, but it has one major weakness from an academic viewpoint, and that is that anybody can create a Wikipedia page. So it's very hard to trust the information there. So Wikipedia is not a source that you should be using, and you shouldn't reference it in an assignment that you're doing. So we're going to start off by showing you where you can start finding information, and this is the library homepage. You'll find that at going to www.ucd.ie/library. We'll be coming back to this later on, but this is a good starting point for you to start looking for information in the library. You can also go to UCD Connect, and you'll see that we've highlighted some of the main library links in UCD Connect. So there's a link directly back into the library's website. You can go directly to OneSearch. You can also check out your library account so you can see what you've got out and renew if you need to. Anytime you're being asked for a login for any of the resources, which you will need if you're off campus, it's going to be a UCD Connect login details. So I have just clicked on the library link in UCD Connect, and it brings me to what we call our online tools page, and you'll see there a link directly for OneSearch for the catalogue. You can see what journals we have online, and you can also see what databases that we have. But I'm going to leave that alone for the moment, and I want to direct your attention to where it says guides and help at the top of the screen. This is one of the core areas that you can go to get more help for your degree. So when you go into guides and help, there are four main areas, and we're going to go into I am a student. You can see we've highlighted there on the left. You go into I am a student, there are three main areas. The first area we're going to have a look at, just make you aware of it, is video and interactive tutorials. And when you go into the videos and interactive tutorials, you'll see a full range of videos. So you'll see videos on searching OneSearch, evaluating information, on how to reference and evaluate information as well. So it's worthwhile having a look here. If you have a question about using the library, we might have a very short video that might answer any questions that you do have. The next area to have a look at in guides and help is subject guides. And subject guides are an attempt by the librarians to give you a starting point to find out what's available in UCD on various topics. You can see here a list of the guides. So you can see we've everything from agriculture to veterinary nursing. And on the right hand column, it's just not on the screen here at the moment, you can see the guide for sports and exercise management. And this is the home page for the sports and exercise management subject guide. On the left hand side you'll see my contact details, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Just click on the email me button and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also on the landing page you'll see a link on the right hand side for information about journal articles and databases. So here you can find some of the main resources for your subject. Here you can see some of the main databases we've identified as in being important for your course, such as Sport Discus and Academic Search Complete. There are other databases there as well, and if you're off campus, remember you'll just be logging in with your UCD Connect login details. The other thing we would say about the guides is that don't assume that the only guide you'll ever need is the sports and exercise management. Anytime you have a question or you're investigating a topic, one of the questions you should ask yourself is, are there any other subjects that might have information? And then seeing, do we have a guide for that? And are there any extra resources that might be useful? So now I've returned back to the library homepage, which remember is www.ucd.ie/library. And we're going to talk now about OneSearch. Now OneSearch is what we would have called a few years ago the library catalogue, and you would have used it to see if we have a book in the library or do we have a journal. OneSearch is much more powerful than that, and you can use it not only to see if we have books or ebooks and journals, you can also check to see if we have articles, newspaper articles, etc. So there's a load of information in there. So coming up are going to be links to 3 videos that you can watch explaining how you can use OneSearch. So there'll be a bit of silence, you can pause the button, find the URL, and then go view the videos. And then once you've watched those, we'll continue on and talk about how you can use them. So we're back again in Guides and Help, and the last section to show you is Study Skills. So in Study Skills there's loads of more useful information. There's information on finding and searching for information, evaluating information. There's information on how to use EndNote. We'll come back to that later on because we'll be dealing with that specifically at the end of the session. But there's also very important information about referencing and plagiarism. In our Academic Integrity Guide, we have information on how to avoid plagiarism, on how to reference and cite. We have a number of the main styles that are used across the university highlighted there. You pick the one that you're told to use. I believe it's probably going to be Harvard. And then if you click on the tab, it'll give you information about what it is. But if you also mouse over the tab again, it'll give you loads of examples on how to manage your referencing. Citing and referencing is really, really important. So this is a really valuable guide to guide you through the process. So now you should know where resources are on the library website. You should know how to search OneSearch. So we're going to show you now how you can start building up your search strategy and searching effectively for information on your own. One of the biggest problems we all suffer from today is information overload. So there's just so much information out there, it's hard to know where to start looking and what the best sources are. The best way of combating this information overload is to have a planned literature search. And a literature search is a well thought out and organised search for all the literature published on a topic. And it's the most effective and efficient way of locating sound evidence on the subject you're researching. This slide is to indicate why it's so important. This is a table from a study that was done in 2009, and the researchers calculated that every year there was 1.3 million articles being published. In the intervening 10 or 11 years, this is more than doubled, and the most recent figure I've seen suggests there's 2.7 million articles being published. So every week, every day, every month, there is a torrent of information coming towards you. And if you don't have a plan to search for it, you're going to be at a disadvantage. How do you go about searching effectively? Well, it's really important to stop and think about what you're searching for before you actually do the search. You also need to bear in mind that a successful search is going to move irrelevant references. There's a lot you can do while searching to get rid of articles you know in advance you don't want to see. It's also important that you end up with a manageable number of highly relevant references. You don't want to end up with thousands of references. You want to end up with a number of references that you can get through in the time you've got available. And it's also important that you keep a research diary. What is a research diary? A research diary is just some place you keep track of your progress. It allows you to keep track of your searches, what you managed to get a copy of, what you've managed to read, what's worked, what hasn't worked. So the less time you spend reinventing the wheel as you come back to a project or a topic, the more time it will save you. How do you approach your topic? Well, it's no harm to start off by doing a scoping search, which is a rough and ready search to get an idea of what might be out there, and then use what you find to go on and develop a more comprehensive search. If you're already aware of a key reference, an article, or a book, make sure you make the most of it. Always read the bibliography at the end of appropriate articles. All academic articles should have references to back up the claims that the author is making. So if there's a point in an article that you like and you think is relevant, it should have a couple of citations linking it to further reading, so you go and find those readings. Also allied to that is a technique called cited reference search, and this allows you to find who has used the article you like after it was published. Google Scholar is good for doing that, as well as Scopus, as well as Web of Science. So you can check to see who's taken the article you like and who has built upon it, disproved it, or embraced it into their own research. If you're finding it difficult to come up with a good search strategy, search for the article you know in the databases, and you can see what keywords the database has given to describe it. And the databases give consistent words to describe the content within it. So if you know what is being used to describe the article you like, you can take those keywords and see if there's any other articles that match that criteria. The good news is that there is a recognized process or cycle involved in literature searching, and you can take advantage of this to guide you through the process. You start off at number one, where you define the question or problem. This is where you look at the question that's been posed, you break it down into its component parts, and you start thinking of what keywords you can use to describe it. You choose the appropriate database or resource for your topic, and we've shown you where you can find the subject guides and the listings for the databases and resources for your subject. Then you take the keywords you've discovered, the resources you've decided you're going to use, and then formulate your search strategy. And we're going to talk about how you can then formulate your search strategy to be as effective as possible. You need to evaluate the resources. Don't assume that everything is equal. You need to find the best quality information. And don't be surprised if it doesn't work flawlessly the first time and you need to tweak your search strategy to be the most effective that you can make it. So starting at number one, you're defining your topic. You get your question, you break it down into its key concepts, and then you start thinking of all the keywords that you can use to describe those concepts. So you think of as many different appropriate alternative words and phrases to describe that concept. So these are some of the things you can be thinking about when you're thinking about your keywords. Is there alternative vocabulary being used when people are talking about this topic? Are there variations in how words are spelt? This is usually American English versus Irish English. Words like colour or labour. Can you identify multiple words that have the same root but different endings? There are tools in the database to allow you to automatically search for all possible endings. Are there abbreviations being used? As well as using the abbreviation, use the full version and vice versa. So all these will allow you to think of multiple terms for the same concept and therefore improve the quality of your search. So we're going to look at a simple question. We're looking for information on the impact of sponsorship on the GAA. So I have looked at that question. I have determined there are three main concepts. One is impact, two is sponsorship, and 3 is GAA. So the next thing I would be doing would be examining each of those concepts and trying to get as many different keywords as possible. So why don't you pause the video at this stage, start thinking about what other terms could I use to describe impact, what other terms I could use to describe sponsorship, what other term to describe GAA, and then come back and we'll see how well we've done together. So how did you get on? So for example, for concept 1, which is impact, I also thought about influence or bearing. For sponsorship, I thought of endorsement or backing. For GAA, I thought of Gaelic Athletic Association, or maybe one of the individual sports, hurling or Gaelic football. Did you manage to come up with anything different yourself? So now I'm starting to build up my search strategy. So I would write this out in a Word document so I can copy and paste when I'm going from database to database. So I've got impact or influence or bearing as one search string. I've got sponsorship or endorsement or bearing as my second string. And then I've got GA or Gaelic Athletic Association or hurling as my third search string. So I'm in a much better position now to do a proper comprehensive search because I've got a number of keywords for each concept. So where are you going to look for information? Well, there's a number of different places you will be looking depending on how much you know. And these are called primary, secondary and tertiary sources. If it's a new area that you're investigating and you're unsure of the basics, you're going to be looking at what we call the tertiary literature. And these could be encyclopedias and dictionaries. So you're looking for summaries or overviews or definitions. And at this stage, there's no controversy about the information. It's pretty much agreed among the entire community as to what the content is. If you already have that basic level of information but you want to go into more detail, then you can go to what we call the secondary literature. And this is books, review articles. The information is still synthesized. It's at more detail. But once again, generally people agree on the content. And the last place we're going to end up is what we call the primary literature. And these are your conference proceedings, your scholarly journal articles. This is original or new research. It's still up for debate. It could be controversial. So you need to be much more critical when you're reading this kind of information. And how can the library help you get to this information? If you're talking about reference material such as dictionaries and encyclopedias, you can search OneSearch to see what we have available for you. You can also search OneSearch to see if we have books or ebooks on this topic. If you're looking for your primary literature or your journal articles, you can use OneSearch databases or the journals themselves to find that information. And don't forget, there could be information in theses, so you can find those in OneSearch as well. Maybe there's articles being published in newspapers. And the great thing about newspapers is that they're written to be read by a broad audience, so they are usually quite understandable. So you can check all those sources to see if there's more information out there for you as well. By this stage of the literature searching process, you should have gotten your question, you should have broken it down into its component parts, you should have started thinking about all the possible keywords that you could use to describe that. We've shown you already where all the tools in the library are available for you, the databases. We've shown you where the subject guides are. So now we're going to talk about the various tools that you can use within the databases to do the best quality search for the information you need. And the ones we're going to be looking at today are Boolean operators, phrase searching, truncation, wildcard, field searching, and limits. One of the most fundamental tools for building up your search strategy is Boolean operators or Boolean logic. And whether or not you're aware of them, you do use them every day. Google just doesn't tell you. You can use these to broaden your search, narrow your search, or even exclude terms from your search results. So looking at the first example, here's the AND operator, and you can use this to narrow down your search results. So if we do rugby and union, it's going to bring back any reference where both of those terms occur. So it gives you an effect, that little bit in red there in the center where the concepts overlap. If you have a load of different terms for the same concept, you can use the OR operator, football or soccer. And as long as one of those terms is in an article, you'll see it in your results. So it's a great way of being really broad when searching. And if there's certain terms you want to exclude from your results, you can use the not operator. Football, not Gaelic, will return anything to do with football, but will exclude anything to do with Gaelic. Even the little bit in the centre there where they both overlap, you're not going to see it because you explicitly said you don't want to see Gaelic. So when you're searching within a concept, it's going to be the or operator. When you want to combine different concepts together, it's going to be the and operator. And if you cast your mind back to what just came before, you'll be able to remember that you can then combine them to do very sophisticated searches. Another tool that you can use is phrase searching. And this is where you're telling the database to search for words that occur together in a particular order. So the examples we have here is Gaelic Athletic Association and Rugby Union. So if I didn't put inverted commas around rugby union, it's going to search for rugby and union, and that's not as precise as rugby union as a phrase. And the inverted commas or quotation marks tells the database you're searching for that term as a phrase. Another technique that you can use to improve the quality of your search is called truncation. Truncation allows you to search for words that start the same but have multiple different endings. The example we have is run with an asterisk, and the asterisk is there to represent all potential endings. So run with an asterisk will find you run, runs, running, runner, runners. The database will keep going through all the possible endings, but you only have to type it in the one time and use the correct symbol. Now, were you talking about an asterisk here? This is not a universal symbol. When you go to a resource, go to the help pages and check and see what symbol they're expecting you to use to do truncation, if you're using truncation. I also mentioned this one earlier on, and this is alternative spelling. So the same word can be spelled slightly differently depending where you are in the world or what profession that you're in. So words like colour or labour or centre. So what you can do is take out the letter that differs and put a symbol in its place. Here we've gone for question mark, take in place of the U. So colour with the U, with a question mark where the U is, we'll find your colour with a U and colour without a U. Now we've talked in truncation about using an asterisk and in alternative spellings using a question mark. These are not universal symbols. Different databases or resources will expect you to use different symbols, so check what symbol you should be using when you're searching that. You can also take advantage of the fact that the databases have highly organized or structured records. And if you have noticed that the good quality articles that you really like have certain terms in the title or abstract, you can tell the database that you want to search for those terms in the title or abstract to get that quality level that you require. And you'll see drop down menus once again allowing you to select what fields you want to search in the databases as well. And finally, we're going to look at limits. And limits is a powerful way of getting rid of stuff you know in advance that you don't want to see. So for example, if you want the most up-to-date research, you can use a date limit to discard everything older than the date you're happier with. You can limit by such things as language. So if, like me, all you have is English, you can put in a limit of just English. You can also limit by things such as peer review. So if you want the most reliable information, select peer review as a limit. So when you're thinking about your question, think about what you don't want to see coming up and see if you can find a limit in the databases to help you get rid of stuff. And one more limit to mention is peer review. Some academic journals are known as peer-reviewed journals. And what this means is that when an author submits an article for publication, the editors send the article out to other experts in the field. And only if they say it's worth publishing does it get published. So the peer review process is an attempt by the academic publishing to guarantee a level of quality in what's being published. So you can find in many databases an option to select peer review as a limit. So if you're being told you want high quality articles, then you should consider whether or not you want to use peer review as a limit. How can you tell if an article has been peer reviewed? As I said just a second ago, if the database has a limit for peer review, take that. Some databases, it's all peer review, so you don't have to worry about it. If the database has information about the journals contained in it, investigate that. You can often search for the journal in one search or in Google and examine the journal homepage to determine if there's information about the journal and if it says it's peer reviewed or not. If we have a print copy of the journal in the library, you can take a copy off the shelves and look inside the cover and see if it says if it's peer reviewed or not. We're now going to show you how one of these databases work. So we're going to show you how Sport Discus can be used to search for information. One search is great. It shows you what we have in the library, but the database is giving you the fuller view of what's happening in the research. So you should also be using the databases when looking for information. So the first thing we have to do is find our database. The database we're going to be using is Sport Discus. You can either find it on the subject guide for sports and exercise management, or you can just search for it in one search. So I'm just going to type in Sport Discus into my search box, click on Go, and then we're brought out to our results, and you'll see there's a section at the top called Database Recommendations, and there's the link for Sport Discus, so I can just click on that. Because I'm off campus, I'm going to log in with my UCD Connect login details, and now I'm being brought into Sport Discus. So I can put my search strings in. So we were searching for the impact of sponsorship, so impact or influence or bearing as one search string, and I can just click on search and I can check to see if this is a strong search strategy. So I've got 130,000 plus articles, so that's very good. I go on now and do my second search, so it's sponsorship. Or endorsement or backing, and click on search, and this time we get about 15, just under 16,000 references. Now I need to combine these two individual search strings, so if I go to search history, there are my two search strings. Most of the databases will keep a record of the searches you run while you're on them. Now if I want to combine these two searches, I can do that. I can just click S1, which is impact or influence or bearing, with my search 2, which is sponsorship or endorsement or backing, and then I can just click on search with and we find over here on the right hand side where it says view results, we have just over 1,000 records. So if I click on view results, there's all the references, and I can do a bit more to narrow them down if I want to. So if I click on the date slider, for example, if I want just what's been happening recently, I can just drag that to a day. So if I go for the last 10 years, we'll see we've got rid of nearly half of them already. If I want just academic journals, I can select that as a limit as well. I can also select language, English, that's all I have. So every time you make one of those choices, you see a reduction in the number of results that we have. You can even limit it by geography if you wanted to do by Australia, etc. So you can get more information about any article by just clicking on the title. So here we have the title of the article, the authors. You even get email addresses of the authors, the journal, etc. And where it says subject terms, these are terms given by the database to describe the article. So if you cannot come up with a good search strategy, but you have some articles that you think are relevant, search for them in the database and see what keywords the database gives. There's the abstract to inform you about the article. If you want to try and read the article, you can click on the one search at UCD link, and if we have a subscription to it, you'll be brought straight to the article. Unfortunately, we don't have everything, but we do go through in this presentation some of the strategies that you can do to get your hands on the articles that you think are interesting, but there isn't an immediate link to getting your hands on the article. So I go back again to our result. There are other options as well to getting the full text of the article. You'll see some references say PDF full text. So Sport Discus does contain a certain amount of full text within them. And if you click on PDF full text, the other alternative is HTML full text. You will be able to view the article immediately. If we go back again, let's just have a quick browse to see, is there HTML? There's another PDF. So on this page there isn't a HTML, but you can read the article online and download and save that article as well. If you want to keep track of the references that you have gained, you can see there is a little folder icon beside the articles, and every time I click on it, it's saved to a folder in the database. And as soon as you start clicking onto this new area that says folder has items appears from the right hand side, and then if I go to folder view, I can print off the details, you can email them, you can save it as a file to your computer, and you can export them to EndNote as well. And later on we will be talking about how you can get EndNote training. Another option that's available to you is that you can create an account in the database. And the great thing is that many databases allow you to create an account. And if you create an account, you can save your search and rerun it at a later stage if you want to, without having to type it in. And even more impressively is that you can create an alert, so you can get the database to inform you when new articles that meet your search criteria come out. So you can tell the database to email you every week, every month with these new articles. So it's really worth creating an account in the databases to help you keep on top of a topic that you have a long-term interest in. So these are just some of the tools that we wanted to introduce to you. We just want to give you a quick look at how you can use Sport Discus. There are other databases out there. They may look differently on the screen, but they all do the same thing. In previous searches, you may have found it difficult to get through to the full text of articles you've discovered. So I'm going to talk now about some steps or strategies you can use to help you get to the full text of the articles you're interested in. So the first step I would always take is I would just double check and search one search to make sure we don't have access to it. This has worked for me in the past. I've been told that we don't have access to it. I've double checked it and it's been there. So that would always be my first step. You can always search Google Scholar. Google Scholar is great at showing you free versions of many articles. So just take the title of the article and search for it in Google Scholar. You can check to see if another university has it. Just as you can search one search to see what we have, you can go to any other university's equivalent of one search, put in the title of the journal and see if they have it. If you have a family member or a friend who's studying there, email them and see if they'll download a copy of that article and send it on to you. You could try emailing the author. Quite often in the database is information about the authors and the institution, and sometimes even an email address. So you could always email them, explain that you're a student in UCD, you're doing research, you found their article, we don't subscribe to the journal, would it be possible to get a copy of the article? So you could always try that. If none of those work, you can try our interlibrary loan scheme. You'll see a link for that on the library homepage, and we will try and locate it for you somewhere else. But this is where it's starting to cost you a bit of money, and we'll charge you €6 for every article you request. You can also try buying it directly from the publisher. I'm only saying this to be thorough. Hopefully it never gets to this stage. And this will cost you a lot more than €6. I've seen prices ranging from $20 to $30, and it's usually just for 24-hour access. So if you buy the article and you don't look downloaded within the 24 hours and you still want it, you get to pay for it again. But as I said, hopefully you'll never get that far. You can always email me if you have a question and explain that where you found the article and what you've done to try and locate it, and I'll see if I can do anything to help you as well. So if we cast our mind back to the circle of the literature searching process, one of the later steps is evaluation. Don't assume that everything is equally as good. So you need to evaluate the results that you find. So why do you need to evaluate? You need to make sure that you can confidently back up your claims, that the source is fit for purpose, and that the information that you have found is reliable. So how do you go about evaluating a source? How can you determine whether something is good or bad? These are the criteria you should be using when you're evaluating your results. You need to think about the authority, the objectivity, the timeliness, the supporting evidence, and the relevance. So when we're talking about authority, we're asking who is the author and what is the source of their authority, i.e. what is their academic specialism or professional experience. So in the article, does it say professor or doctor? Does it say what organization they're working with? Can you tell if a systematic and rigorous process has been carried out? So, for example, can you trace the articles or the references? Has the evidence been discussed and thoroughly analysed? And can you tell if it has been peer-reviewed or gone through an editing process? Objectivity. What is the purpose of the information? Is it trying to inform, sell, or persuade you? Has the work been commissioned on part of another organisation? If so, have steps been taken to ensure objectivity? Are the author's own assumptions apparent? Or does his beliefs undermine the arguments he's trying to make? Can you tell when the information was created or last updated? Is there more recent research available? If it's information you found on a website, does it look like it's been maintained, and do the links work? Does the author provide supporting evidence to advance his ideas, views, and conclusions? What kind of evidence is being used? Is there any data or statistics being provided? Does it look like the author has undertaken any original research, or is he just repeating stuff? Are there any accurate references to other sources that you can follow? And finally, relevance. Is the information too basic or too advanced for your needs? Is the emphasis of the topic appropriate for your needs? And does it relate fully to the topic that you're interested in? And finally, remember, evaluate the source itself, not just the information. If you're asked for a primary source, is it a primary source? If you're asked for journal articles, the web might not be the best place to start. If you're asked for a detailed answer, is the source you found comprehensive enough? One of the important parts of any academic assignment is referencing and citing. And why is it important? It's part of academic writing. Academic research builds on existing knowledge, and you have to acknowledge that existing knowledge. It shows that you've read, understood, and can use other researchers' observation. It supports your discussion and your arguments. It avoids plagiarism. So you don't want to be caught passing off somebody else's writing, ideas, or research as your own. It'll help you get better marks, and it helps others to find your references as well. What needs to be referenced? Well, basically any source of information, whether it's from a book, a chapter from an edited book, a journal article, newspaper articles, conference papers, government publications, encyclopedias, websites, etc. In fact, the only information that doesn't need to be cited is what's called common knowledge. And this is information that can be reasonably expected that anybody would know, i.e. Dublin is the capital of Ireland. The last thing we're going to talk about is EndNote. An EndNote is a reference management tool which allows you to gather, store, and manage references. It allows you to add references manually from databases such as Reaccess, Web of Science, Google Scholar, and other sources. And then using a feature called Cite While You Write allows you to take those references from your EndNote library and add them into whatever document you're typing in Microsoft Word. We have a guide dealing with EndNote on the library website. you can find it in the study skills section of I am a student, and it'll introduce you to the basics. My contact details are on that because I'm responsible for EndNote support in the library. There should also be links on Brightspace for EndNote training for you. So there should be a recorded webinar going through how to use EndNote. There's information how to download and install EndNote, and a worksheet that you can go through it as well. I would recommend looking at this presentation on how to use EndNote, working through the worksheet, and gaining the experience of how to use EndNote. It's a very powerful tool that can save you a lot of time. It'll help you manage your references, and it'll save you that extra time also when you are doing an assignment and have to figure out how to reference everything that you've read. So it will save you time. If you think EndNote will be useful for you, you can get some training on the EndNote guide. If you remember, you'll find that if you go to Guides and Help, I'm a Student, Study Skills, and then you will see the EndNote guide. On the front page there, you'll see my contact details again, so you can always contact me. And if you look on the right there, it says EndNote X9 training. So there's a video that you can watch which will last about half an hour telling you how to create your EndNote library, how to add references to your EndNote library, and also how to use EndNote and Microsoft Word together as well. There's also information on installing EndNote X9, and read this before you install it. One of the things that you need to bear in mind is that when you download EndNote from UCD Connect, it comes as a compressed file. So you need to open that, just double click on it, it'll open. There'll be a folder inside. Copy that folder to the desktop and then install EndNote from the folder on your desktop. If you don't do that, you'll be told you have a free 30-day trial. You'll also be asked for a license key. But as I said, if you install from the folder on the desktop, you'll be fine. There's also a worksheet that you can use as well that goes along with the video presentations that you can work through the various exercises. So I thoroughly recommend that you have a look at that. If you want to use Google Scholar as a tool for finding information, you can set up Google Scholar so you'll be able to link through to the resources that UCD has purchased. So all you do first of all is go to Google Scholar, and the easiest thing to do is just search for Scholar in Google. It's always going to be the first result. Look for the Scholar preferences. It'll be on the left hand side, and then you'll see a library links section. Click in there, search for University College Dublin, tick the checkbox beside any result. It should say University College Dublin, one search at UCD Library, and then click on it. Then when you run your search, you will be able to see a link beside any article that is in UCD. So you can just click on that to view it. You'll see a one search at UCD link. You'll also see loads of free versions. So you'll see PDF and HTML links for articles, and those are free versions of articles. The final thing we're going to ask you to do is give us feedback. We are always trying to improve these sessions. So there's a URL at the bottom of the screen. It's bit.ly/MSC Sports. So if you just go to that URL or type that URL into your browser, and it's a very short, there's only a couple of questions. We would really appreciate the feedback that you give us. Thanks for listening to this presentation on finding information in the library. We hope that you find it useful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. As you remember, you can find my contact details on the subject guide for sports and exercise management, and also on the guide for EndNote as well. Please do not hesitate to get in touch if you've got any questions. Thank you.